Right, okay, I'd like to introduce you to my next little tool. This is what's known as a radius disc, or a former. It's basically a square of MDF, and it's been hollowed out. So there's a dish in it, which is exactly 15-foot radius. And the idea of it is, well, the idea originally was that it was to form the back of the guitar. Different manufacturers have different radiuses. This is actually the 15-foot that Martin use, and if it's good enough for Martin, it's probably good enough for me. And as you can see the radius there when I put that piece of wood on it. Now, if you imagine this was the back of a guitar, what you do, when you put your bracing on the back, you force it down using using this thing I made before, if you remember the Go Bar deck, with some rods hanging down, and you force the rods between the top and the bottom, and you push them onto here, and it pushes it down. As you can see, it forms the shape of the dish, and that was the original idea of it. That's all it was to start with. However, some bright spark came up with the idea that if you actually coated this with sandpaper, you could also use it for shaping your braces. Say this is a brace, but of course, you can see the shape of it. There's a big gap underneath. But the easiest way to do it, apparently, is cover this with sandpaper, rub it backwards and forwards, and before you know where you are, you've got that shape, the right shape for your bracing. Brilliant idea, because it not only shapes it longitudinally, like that, but it shapes it across. So it's perfect for doing what you want to do, if it works. Now, the problem is with the sanding discs, to fit on these, they're horrendously expensive. They're about £35 each, and they glue on. So I thought, well, I'm not spending 35 quid on a piece of sandpaper. So I've got some ordinary, 80 grit sandpaper here, which is apparently what they use. I've put it into little segments, and I'm going to glue it on myself and see what happens. So I'll let you know how we get on with it. So here's the first one. I'm using something like this. It's repositionable spray glue, it says, so we'll soon find out whether it works or not. Well, that's the first one in place. Seems to be okay. I don't mind if there's little gaps between them, so long as it's flat. Because all that's going to do is just, be like a mill wheel, really, I suppose, and it will just gather the dust from the sanding as it's done. So I'll carry on round and do the rest of it now. Right, there we go. That seems to have just saved myself about 30 odd quid on a sanding disc. Isn't that good? And the way it works, as I say, is you basically put this on, sand it, and it will take up the shape of the disc, which is good. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And the other thing it's going to do, which is another great little thing, I'm going to show you now. Just one second. Okay, this is the little trick with the sanding disc, which is a pretty clever one, really. Now, what I've done, this we've all seen before. The frame's still in the mould, spacers are still in, spreading it out. Now, what I've done, as you might be able to see here, is I've actually bolted, well, it's not much bolted, but pegged this frame to the work surface so it doesn't move. And the radius disc will obviously cut the back. Well, it will form the back to an exact shape. Now, you can use the radius disc to form this to exactly the same shape simply by turning it upside down, putting it on top, and sanding the whole thing, which I'm going to do now. Just give me a second, I'll show you what I mean. Right, the disc is now upside down on the back of the guitar. The sanding disc's part of it's facing the actual guitar side, if you can see that from there. And all you do, and again you probably need two hands to do this, is just turn this like this, and it sands the back blocks and everything to exactly the same radius that the back's going to be. So when you come to put the back on, it should, in theory, drop straight on. Now, the last one didn't. The last one I had to force it on, and it was a very, very, very tight squeeze to fit it on. I thought that was a good idea, and it may still be a good idea because it puts a lot of tension in the back. So the back is like a drum, it's as tight as a drum, but of course it's under constant tension all the time, and I don't think that's the way they're supposed to be, but it has got a good sound. So we'll see how we go with this one. I'm going to spend a bit of time doing this, and then we'll move on to the next process. Cheers. The way, incidentally, you know whether you're sanding it level and flat is simply to go around the thing with a white pencil, just got a white one, and make marks on it like this. You know when the marks disappear that you've sanded it, so you know it's all level. I won't bore you to death by doing this all the way around, but you can see what it's all about. And that's how it goes. You can see from the edges, obviously there's sort of sand and dust around the sides, so it is